Request it, I'll do it when I can get to it. And it's still not sponsored, by the way, just so we're clear.
Ever since I started this channel, I've had a love-hate relationship with Polaroid. While I've consistently loved the design, the form factor, ease of use, and aesthetics of the newer Polaroid OneStep 2 and OneStep Plus, the reliability of their film, the Polaroid chemistry, just wasn't there. But in my experience, as of 2020, the one shining beacon of hope in this otherwise shitty year, that's all changed. I've been ordering my film directly through Polaroid, I've been using the film in a timely manner, and I've had some very consistent results, which is wonderful. And along with this development, sorry, Polaroid did another rebrand. No more Polaroid Originals, just Polaroid. And they dropped a new camera, the Polaroid Now. So let's set the stage. You already have the Polaroid OneStep 2 or the OneStep Plus. Is the Polaroid Now worth it? Or are you completely new to all of this and you just want to know if the Polaroid Now is the right instant camera for you? Well, stick around, bucko, because I'm about to answer all of your questions, and maybe, if you're nice to me, I'll throw a few memes in there too. I feel like the stakes are kind of high for me in this video because I told my Discord that I would get this done by the end of the year, and well, December 31st, here we are. And I also want you guys to know one last thing before we jump into this review. I skipped getting drunk on my birthday for this. So if you ever question my love for you guys, just remember this video. It's kind of funny, I first started uploading to this channel in 2017, but consistently uploading in 2018. And since then, it feels like there's been a new Polaroid camera per year. I guess it's not like haha funny, it's more like, So when 2020 came around, I picked up the Polaroid Now, and frankly, I hated it at first. But then I began to understand the camera better. I began to understand who it's really for and what its purpose is. And it was at that point my opinion greatly changed. It's kind of like the movie Hereditary. The first time I saw it, I hated it. Now it's probably one of my favorite modern horror films. And that, my friends, is why my reviews take so damn long. I don't want to rush the stage with my thoughts.
It's been 84 years.
I'm not going to be a YouTuber who opens the box, uses a camera for the afternoon, and pretends to know everything about it. I've been using this for 9 months now, so I have some thoughts that have had time to marinate. Let's start with the photos, and then we'll talk more about the camera itself. I think the Polaroid Now is an instant camera that's geared towards the masses. It's entry level. Now, does that imply people who have been doing instant photography for a while won't enjoy this camera? No, not the case at all. In fact, I enjoy it quite a bit. But I think Polaroid was trying to cast a wide net with this camera. For an absolute beginner, I think this could be your gateway drug into instant photography. It's simple enough for you to get started and get good results, but you have some interesting features like double exposures and exposure compensation to dip your toes into the more experimental and creative side of things. We'll talk more about those features in the next section. But much like my opinion on the Pentax K1000, just because something has a beginner's label attached to it doesn't prevent it from being a fantastic tool to make photos. Talking about Polaroid photos is tricky because the film is just as important as the camera itself. If you're not following their best practices, you might not have a great time. I made a whole video about the subject. Definitely check that out if you're new to the instant film life. Hopefully it'll save you some money and some heartache. But the thing is, straight out of the box, the Polaroid Now is ready to rock. There's a very small learning curve. If you handle the film right, you're gonna make some beautiful instant photos. The Polaroid Now is a pure point-and-shoot camera. It strips away the manual control from the Polaroid OneStep Plus and instead opts for a completely in-the-moment spontaneous sort of philosophy. You aren't meant to worry about the exposure times or aperture settings. You're meant to point and shoot. I can honestly say that long-term, out of all the new Polaroid cameras, I've had the best experience on the Polaroid Now. I get consistent results and I get better colors. This obviously has a ton to do with the film, of course, but the camera is certainly doing a fabulous job. It grabs focus, it figures out what the exposure is, whatever instant film wizardry that's going on under the hood there, I like it, I'm a big fan. I want to start this section off by talking about the looks of the Polaroid Now. Not gonna lie, this new body kind of makes me think of like a Fisher-Price Polaroid. I don't enjoy the rounded look nearly as much as the edgier look of the previous Polaroid OneStep 2 and OneStep Plus. Certainly not a deal breaker. I mean, I've shot on a potato, an Arizona can, I've developed Polaroids in a toaster, hell, I've soiled my hands with the Fragment 8, so I think I can use a Polaroid camera that I don't find sexually attractive. Wait, that didn't come out right. The red one kind of looks like a Pokeball, so that's cool, I guess. It does come in a number of colors, which is pretty cool. I wanted the green one, but that was sold out, so I went with the red one. But in terms of ease of use and creative functionality, I initially felt like the Polaroid Now was a massive step back from the OneStep Plus. And here's the thing, there's no getting around this. It is a massive step back from the OneStep Plus, if you value those creative controls. If you value linking your camera to the app, if you value the creative stuff like long exposures, the Polaroid Now isn't the camera for you, full stop. The Polaroid Now doesn't even have a tripod socket on the bottom of the camera, though it does have a very inspirational quote. An essential aspect of creativity is not being afraid to fail. Nice try, Edwin Land. I appreciate the advice, but give me a tripod socket. Now granted, there are some DIY solutions for that, but still, no Bluetooth, no crazy deep creative controls from the OneStep Plus. They're mostly removed in the Polaroid Now. But again, in the context of the point and shoot vibe, I think the Polaroid Now is right on the money. I think it's designed to be a camera that you can just take out of your bag, turn on, and shoot. It's designed in such a way that you don't really need to slow down and think. At almost 20 bucks a pack, I recommend you do slow down a little bit before you shoot, but hey, I think that spontaneous vibe is what you're meant to feel when you're using the Now. It's meant to be a very in-the-moment experience. Oh my god, that's why they named it the Polaroid Now. But overall, the experience is great when you're using the camera the way it was intended to be used. It focuses accurately most of the time, and it does so in a pretty speedy manner. Its exposure choices are usually pretty good, though I will say in my experience it tends to favor overexposing even if you don't mess with the exposure compensation switch. Maybe that's intentional to go with the vintage vibe, I don't know. And to clarify, you can control the exposure compensation on the Polaroid Now. While they removed the dedicated switch, which I think was a terrible mistake, you can access it simply by holding the flash button. Then you can tap it to choose middle, overexposed, or underexposed. It's clunky, it's way less convenient than just having a switch, but it's there. It feels like it's going with that point and shoot vibe. I think Polaroid literally wanted this camera to turn on and take photos. So the features exist for people who want it, but it's not in the way, or it's not there to intimidate people who don't want to go that deep with it. We can argue the philosophy forever, but the point is, the exposure compensation switch is there, it works, but it could be better. In my experience, the camera performs well in most shooting scenarios. It certainly knows what to do at golden hour and sunset. I find shooting the Polaroid Now at sunset, no flash, is like the best use case. The colors are wonderful. Some of the incredibly talented people in my Discord have made some beautiful Polaroids using this camera during golden hour. And be sure to go check those people out on Instagram. And I think that's one of the aspects of the Polaroid Now that impresses me the most. These are probably some of the best recent Polaroids I've taken without a flash. In my experience, when you're not using the flash, the camera meters light and deals with exposure much better than the OneStep 2 and the OneStep Plus. The flash is incredibly bright, it works great for portraits. I'm not seeing too many where I'm washing out skin tones or getting the red eye, except for Holly in this photo, unfortunately. And keep in mind, if you are shooting indoors, anything low light, anything that's not in that bright outdoor sunlight or golden hour or anything like that, it's probably best practice to use the flash, otherwise you're gonna get some pretty underexposed shots. The viewfinder is pretty good though. I find it not to be 100% accurate. There have been some times where I've framed up and gotten a slightly unexpected outcome, like having rogue objects in the frame. It's not the end of the world, it's one of those things you have to keep in mind. You're not looking directly through the lens, you just have the window that you're kind of using as a basis for your composition. I kind of expect stuff like this on instant cameras. Let's talk about the lens in a little bit more detail. First of all, it's a dual lens system, so when you're using the autofocus, the camera is actually moving between two different lenses. One lens is geared towards a close-up portrait mode, the other is for landscape. These lenses have two fixed focus zones, 0.55 meters to 1.3 meters and 0.6 meters to infinity. And this is kind of anecdotal, but in my experience, it seems like the sweet spot for the lens if you're doing a portrait is around 2 feet, which is pretty similar to the Polaroid OneStep Plus. If you're right around there, you're gonna get the sharpest photo. Anything closer kind of looks pretty damn soft. In terms of overall sharpness, it's about what you'd expect from a Polaroid camera. It's not the sharpest lens ever, but it gets the job done and it gives you that vintage look that I think if you're considering this camera, you're probably looking for that vibe anyway. In terms of durability, I was actually making a video that I never ended up posting because the second I walked out of the car, I dropped this camera right onto concrete and it's still totally fine, so it's lube proof, I guess. I wouldn't keep dropping it because it does feel quite plasticky, and I imagine a couple of good drops would probably send this to the grave, but one solid drop on concrete, thumbs up, still going. In terms of battery, you charge the camera via USB. I read online that the estimated battery life is 15 packs of film. I'm gonna go ahead and press X to doubt on that one. I think I needed to charge mine around the 6th pack of film, which honestly is still pretty damn good. You just plug it in and do your thing. The battery life is good. In the 9 months I've had it, I think I've charged it maybe 3 times. Loading film is super simple. You just press the button on the side of the camera that will open the Polaroid's mouth, I guess is what you'd call that. And then you just slide the pack of film right in. You'll hear a click, you close it, it'll spit out the dark slide and you're good to go. And keep in mind, you never want to remove that dark slide before it's in the camera if you're new to this, because I actually had a couple people message me saying that. It's there to protect the film from light, so if you remove that, you are exposing the frame and ruining it. Once your film is loaded, the camera could not be simpler. There's only a few buttons to worry about. On the back of the camera, you have the little lightning bolt that turns your flash on and off. Beside that, you have your frame counter that tells you how many shots you have left. And on the front of the camera, you have the red button to take your photos, that's your shutter, and you have the self timer button, which is represented by the little stopwatch. Apart from holding the flash button to get into the exposure compensation, there is another little trick like that on the camera. If you double tap the self timer button, you'll get into double exposure mode. For those of you who don't know, a double exposure is simply shooting 2 photos on one frame. The 2 photos will blend together and they create some really interesting effects. Once you hold the self timer button, you'll see the number 1 displayed on the frame counter. That means you're ready to take your first photo. Take it, the frame won't eject. You'll see that number switch to a 2. Take the second photo, boom, it ejects. There you go. And you have some cool double exposures. The Polaroid Now is a fantastic addition to the newer lineup of Polaroid cameras. To me, I think it's a really great place to start if you're looking to get into instant photography. It's perfect for people who just want to take photos and not worry about settings. It's a point and shoot. But it also offers an introduction to those creative options. I think some people will get this camera, dip their toe in the pool, and be hooked. My prediction, I think early next year, between Q1 and Q2, Polaroid will release the Polaroid Now Plus or something along those lines. It'll be the same body, the same autofocus system, but it'll have the Bluetooth connectivity to do all the creative stuff from the OneStep Plus. That's my prediction. We'll see if I'm right about that. But overall, I've had a blast with the Polaroid Now, and it is currently my go-to Polaroid camera. Let's boot up the Owen Wilson Wow rating system, and I'm giving the Polaroid Now 9 Owen Wilson Wows out of 10.
Wow.
And before we get on out of here, we gotta do the feature. This is the last feature for 10K week overtime. The theme, of course, Polaroid, and I'm giving it to Get Dan Arnott for this beautiful sunset. I think it's a sunset. Too tired to figure it out. Guys, thank you so much for everything. I hope you have a happy new year. Thank you for hanging with me for 10K week overtime. I did 9 videos in 9 days, so I'm pretty tired and there's not gonna be a video tomorrow. I need a little bit of a break after this, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a good enough year despite the circumstances. And from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate all the support. It's been absolutely wild to see the comments, you know, good and bad. All the new people coming to the channel, the Discord is popping off. It's been really awesome. I appreciate you guys immensely, and here's to making 2021 an awesome year. Better than this one. Alright guys, I will catch you in the next one. Goodbye.
Like and subscribe to Sweet Lou Photography. You're the man.